Hey, what's going on, Archons? Welcome to, I guess this is the first episode of KeyThoughts in 2021, the year of the Reforge, where we bring KeyForge to another level. We bring the community into KeyForge, people who love playing games and want to try something new. This is the year for this. And we're going to make that happen. So, as I've said many times, Project Reforge, stay tuned for this. Get prepared. Get your decks ready. Get any spare tokens you have ready. And be prepared to go out there as things get better in terms of COVID. And we can start bringing more people into the fold and understanding what a great game and, more importantly, what a great community we have. So that's my little intro to get things started. But today, the topic I want to talk about is actually AOA. Weird. I feel like I haven't been talking about this at all. No, but you may have seen that there is now this mass AOA that has been acquired due to great sales that happened over the post-Christmas sale, I guess. Boxing Day here in Canada. I know not everyone has Boxing Day, but there was great AOA deals to be had. I took advantage of it, and now I have the new series, the AOA Extravaganza, as I crack a bunch of decks. But something I've been thinking about that exists within AOA, very specifically actually, is the potential to get a deck that has pretty much no Ember control. That's right, it's a very real thing that can occur in a deck, and the very first deck I opened happened to be one of those decks. The Ember control it had consisted of 3 cards total, one being a Groke, one being Cutthroat Research, and one being a Lifeweb. So 2 out of those 3 are basically almost never going to go off. And if they do, it's not even stopping the problem. Cutthroat Research does not stop your opponent from forging. It just is Ember control where you're going to get some Ember. Say a Lifeweb, I pulled it off last night, which is great in a game. First time I think I've ever pulled off Lifeweb. If not, it's definitely enough times that could be counted on one hand. And Groke, of course, requires a little bit of setup, but the deck did have ways where you could fight 2 or 3 times with Groke. So that is one thing, and obviously has a Blood of Titans. Well, not obviously, you don't know this if you didn't see the video, but has a Blood of Titans, which makes the potency of being able to use that to lose 3 Ember a little bit more. But you can't rely on that. That's unfortunately not a viable way of knowing that you're going to control your opponent's Ember and keep yourself in the game and off check. And so I've wanted to take a look at the concept of running decks with no Ember control, because as I open more AOA decks, and for others who have taken advantage of this amazing opportunity to acquire AOA decks, you're going to come across this as well. And you may already have these decks in your collection. And I want to just dive into this concept of playing a deck with no Ember control. Because a lot of the times the feeling is that deck is no longer viable, but I feel like that's maybe not true. And I'm trying to explore how this concept does become viable and how you do take advantage of a deck that is missing this crucial element of the game of KeyForge. Because the deck I opened had, honestly, like combos for days, but no Ember control. Like amazing combos. Like They're Everywhere with Save the Pack. It had a really fun ZYX suite, the project, the director, and the researcher, with a ton of archiving in it, like tons of archiving, because it has triple Titan Librarian, so you're getting a whole bunch of archives and being able to grab those. And then it had the Gangernaut combo as well, with 2 Might Makes Rights, with a crazy creature power in Brobnar. Like just Brobnar alone, you can pull it off. Like I pulled it off twice, 2 games in a row, using a different set of suite of creatures each time to get to that power. So it was really impressive, and I think one of the main things I'm realizing with the lack of Ember control is you need to be able to forge keys without being in your forge key step. And actually the Might Makes Right is even better because you're not even using Ember. So you can keep going. Like I think it's possible to do 2 Might Makes Rights in one turn. It's very, very possible. And that can be 2 keys. You only need to forge 1, and then you just need to set up a good board and pray there's a board wipe. So it's really interesting looking at decks from this perspective, like having the mentality that you're not going to ever be doing anything with your opponent's Ember. Period. that's why I went into the games I played. I played 2 games last night testing this deck out for the first time. I was playing IRL with my friend, and I gave him a really good deck, like an efficient deck that had Ember Control, all this stuff, and I almost won the second one, and I started off with a turn 2 Might Makes Right, and it made a huge difference because it put the pressure on, and it got off to a good start, and I gotta say that it was exciting, and it has like almost this freeing feeling when you're playing, knowing that you don't even have to think about the Ember Control side of things. That being said, there's going to be instances where your opponent's going to burst so hard that you're done. Like, you can't do anything about it. So there is that caveat. So you need to figure out the elements within each deck that can help you go there. There's going to be decks that have no Ember Control, and you may not be able to actually do it because you're going to be relying on that turn after turn getting to keys. I really think that no Ember Control, the right way to make it work is you need key cheats, and probably even multiple key cheats. You need to burst, you need key cheats, and those are the things that are going to be really important. And you have to also think about your opponent's ability to gain Ember. So since they cannot be stopped from forging, you have to think, how can you mitigate those things? Now, that being said, this kind of is a double-edged sword, because if you're trying to get to your Ember faster, then you using creatures to control your opponent's board so they have less of a house to reap out with, that means you're not reaping with your creatures. So there's this balance here that kind of has to be found, and I'm not sure of it yet. Like I said, I just started this exploration, but it's a topic I'm hoping that I'm bringing up as a discussion here, sharing some of my thoughts. I want to hear some of your thoughts. I love the comments, very thorough comments from a lot of people that let me know what they think of situations they've had, experiences where they've had to deal with the same thing. And learning to play decks without Ember Control, I want to do it actually not just like, oh, this one deck that's really fun and has all these combos. It also has Time Traveler as well. But I want to know, like, what are the things you're looking for? So when you're playing sealed and you run into this, you have tools and a ideology of how to have success with that deck, because it's going to happen. We're in a sealed game. You do not have the tools you need to execute in certain levels of the game. So having a familiarity with concepts is going to help you have success with those decks. And that's what I'm working on right now, is I'm going down this path, and I'm going to do it as I open more decks, explore this idea. I'm not going to go back to previous decks I had. Except for maybe one. I have this really highly rated AOA deck that has no Ember Control, and I've always written it off for that reason. But I kind of want to go back to it and take a look at some of the things it has and the potential, and see if it is possible to maybe look into these other things, because it keeps showing up on my DOK, like it's staying up there in the upper echelon, but it has, like, I think a 1.9 on the Ember Control. So I want to go back and visit that as well and see. So I suggest maybe you trying the same things, do your own little exploration, and get back to me with some of your findings, and I'll follow up with more of this as I go and get some ideas. On this topic of doing this idea of kind of exploring, I've also found that being diligent with kind of like a student's perspective, a research sort of idea, and having a pad of paper and recording down the things from my games as I go up to 10 games, because that's what I find is the sweet spot. Do research over 10 games. Start noting things that happened, things that occurred. What were the positives? What were real negatives? What were the set you were playing against, the houses, things like that. Note those down, and whether you won or lost. And just see what happens. See if you notice a trend. Sometimes in the moment you get really in your head and you start looping ideas and concepts that happen within the game, and you don't see the bigger picture. So take notes, write things down if you're interested in really exploring a concept or an idea, and just see what it is, step back, and then kind of analyze all the games with the notes that you were able to take and the things you're able to record that occurred in the games. So hopefully you find this topic interesting, and hopefully it's something you want to explore as well, because I'm hoping we can kind of come together as a community and maybe pool our data and see if we can find a nice little approach to playing really fun decks that don't have Ember Control. Because Ember Control is great, but it doesn't mean there aren't fun things that can happen. And like I said, AOA is definitely a set that has a few houses that when you have those, you know your Ember Control is going to be lower. Basically, Logos and Untamed pretty much guarantee you're going to have almost zero Ember Control. Very, very, very limited, and it's not that potent when it does show up. So it's something that needs to be looked at and figured out, and this puzzle needs to be cracked, and it will be a deck-by-deck basis. But I think it is something fun to explore, so I hope you enjoy this, and I really look forward to hearing your thoughts on this idea and your experiences as well. So thanks for listening this week, And as always, may your Ember never be stolen and your keys forged properly. Have a good one.